Like, no one's gonna catch that on first glance, but when you know the meaning behind it. So I wanted to highlight some outstanding church logos, but not from highly affluent or visible churches. We've got some mainline churches in here, some evangelical churches, some older churches, some church plants. So a good mix, and I saved the best for last. The final church in this video has got to be my favorite, not for reasons you might expect though. You'll understand when we get to it. I've also packaged every single logo design and branding component that you're gonna see in this video into a download, and that download link will be shared later on in the video as well. Let's start with Solid Ground Church. Now, just down the road from this church in Dewey Beach, Delaware, there are these towers that are anchored into the ground, and you can see that reflected in the mark. So you've got that geographical nod to the community the church serves in, but it's also a reference, of course, to Jesus in the Gospels, and that a life built with God is one that's built on a strong foundation. And what's cool about those towers in Dewey Beach is that they've been there for more than 70 years. So just like residents of Delaware have swam at the beaches where these towers preside for their entire lives, so too is God always present in our own lives, watching over us for whatever life's next wave might be. So a ton of great meaning and depth to this logo design. As for the brand targets for this church, they noted earthy, local, outdoor, and stable, and you can see that reflected in the brand's colors. Even just look at the names of some of these colors: woods, copper, morning fog, very earthy and evoking that feeling of the outdoors. And then there are the font choices. We've got the beautiful serif font Garamond in the semi-bold weight paired with Alta. Now, this is not one of the church's brand targets, but the logo, it's also giving sophistication, because sometimes when I give it a quick glance, it does look like the letter S is wearing a top hat. Is that just me?
I'm wearing a top hat.
Next up, this is HighRidge Church, and this church has 4 missional values: know God, find freedom, discover purpose, and make a difference. And you can see those values represented in the 4 sections of the mark. The soft edges are meant to convey warmth and approachability, the kind of community of believers this church aspires to be known as, and the wavy lines are there to match the twists and turns of life as we journey with God. Looking at the colors, I'm personally such a sucker for green. That's my favorite color, and this shade paired with the beige is very nice. For fonts, HighRidge is working with Franklin Gothic on the headings and Trade Gothic for the copy. Another important consideration with logo design, and I find churches especially struggle with this, is does your logo still work when the color is gone? And I like how HighRidge has emphasized that here, showing how their branding can work when it is monochromatic, because it will show up that way in certain places. And so you need your logo to work when it is all white or all black. Next up, we've got First Presbyterian Church of Charlotte. Now, here's what's crazy about this logo. The lines in the stained glass are actually based on the roads of the city grid where this church is located. The church said it this way, quote, "Our church is 200 years old and our next door neighbors are skyscrapers. We love this city. We're honored to be located in the heart of Charlotte where we can offer love, support, and meals to those in need." And look, maybe this is just me, but this is the kind of stuff that just makes a church's logo and their branding sparkle. Like, no one's gonna catch that on first glance, but when you know the meaning behind it. And for me, I love the purple and blue color palette as well. A modern take on stained glass. That stained glass logo mark, it's pretty common in the church world, but I think it does come off as stuffy often, and maybe even a bit dated. This expression of that does not give me those vibes. And then one more cool Easter egg, if you can call it that, about this church's brand colors is that they're an homage to the colors of a couple of the sports franchises in Charlotte, namely the Charlotte Hornets, the basketball team with their purple and blue colors.
Good golly, Miss Molly! He did it!
A very similar blue, though, is also used by the city's football franchise, the Carolina Panthers. As for the fonts, First Presbyterian is utilizing Mascalero Bold Italic, a regal serif font that lends itself well, I think, to their centuries-old legacy as a church. And then that gets paired with Avenir, which is more modern and clean. And I think if you are an older church with a strong history and you want to honor that, but you also know you can't live in the past and want to chart the next chapter for your church, I cannot think of a better example than First Presbyterian when it comes to execution on that aspiration. Next up, we have the church at CW. And look, we're not talking about church names in this video, but I will always be a sucker for the church at names, like the church at CW. The first church I ever worked at when I started as a media director at the age of 21 was at a new church plant called the Church at South Edmonton. So I'll always be a big fan of that church naming formula. On the logo front here, the upper half of the circle, you can see here, you've got the C, and the bottom half shapes a W, kind of cross in the middle, Jesus at the center of his church. And if you are a church that has a logo already and you know it needs a refresh, but you're not exactly thrilled at the prospect of redoing the whole thing from scratch, the church at CW is a great case study for you, because here you can see what their original logo looked like. They wanted to keep it, but they wanted to improve it. So more space was added, the base of the cross got aligned with the opening of the middle of the W, and then the cross's upward beam was elongated to be more recognizable as a Christian cross and not so much a red cross type of shape, which is what it resembled to me anyway, more in that original version of the logo. Let's move now to Reach City Church. Here we've got the R for Reach with two C's tucked into the letter R as well for city and church. If we examine the brand targets for Reach City, we see Swiss design, which I thought was a pretty cool and specific target. And this is a great takeaway for successfully redoing your own church's logo and brand. The more specific that you can get with your creative vision, the more likely you are to have a successful rebrand. This is also a great example of a church with multiple demographics in their community of believers, a mix of urban and rural, ambitious, friendly, and impactful round out the remaining three brand targets. For me, at least, I think it's the fonts that I like the most about this brand. We've got Forma DJR, which is an Adobe font. I don't think I've ever used that font before, but look at how great it displays in both the black weight and the lightweight. And then we've got Swear display in the Salati weight. Here we're seeing the ambitious brand target embodied in that font. And if you're wondering, what is a Salanti weight? And did I even pronounce that right? I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but the word Salati it's just italic backwards. So in my book, take a couple of points away from Swear display for that because, okay, that's criminal. Finally, a third font in this brand family, we've got Acumen. Let's move to Bold Church. This church wanted a logo that was as unabashed as their churches. And again, that's an important principle in logo design. How does your visual brand represent and express the unique DNA of your church? It can't just look good. The best brands and logos also have genuine meaning. And for Bold Church, it's in the name. They wanted something unignorable and disruptive, but also offset by being a bit playful. And I think in church brands, we're often trying to thread the needle of, two opposing ideas. We've seen that a lot in the logos in this video. Modern with rich tradition, urban and rural, or in this case, disruptive and playful. And here's the thing. The church at its best is a mixture of people that wouldn't likely cross paths in other parts of society, right? Different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different ages, varied socioeconomic classes. We are all equal and one in the body of Christ. You know how often non-related, let's say, teenagers and seniors hang out in the same place? That's uncommon, but not in the church. And so this unique blend of different people united with a common purpose, that's what makes the fabric of church unique in our culture. And so it's also what can inspire novel creative expressions in logo design and branding. And speaking of young people, let's move to a younger church now, located in Cleveland, Ohio. This is Cove City Church. They wanted their logo to imbue that feeling of youthfulness and personality. The highlighter green paired with the purple, I think, accomplishes that perfectly. For headings and large text, the font this church chose was Calistoga, paired with the timeless Helvetica for smaller and paragraph text. Together Church, they get their name from the book of Romans, quote, "In Christ we, though many, form one body." And that's what's brought to life here in their visual brand with this double fisherman's knot. Belly font, Neuhaus grotesque display light. Belly is an Adobe font. Neuhaus you can download for free. Antioch Church in Montana. Let's keep things moving. The centerpiece for this logo is pulled from the architecture of the original church at Antioch. Here's the reference for that. And here's how the brand came together. Helvetica and Neuhaus show up again as fonts, with span regular serving as the heading and large text typeface. And then finally, let's look to a youth ministry for our last logo. We're mixing it up here. This is CFC Youth. And if you made me pick just one brand in this entire video as my favorite, at the time of this recording, and I have license to change my pick at any time, I am leaning CFC Youth. Now, why is this? Well, because I was born in 1991, and if you look at the brand targets for CFC Youth, here's what you'll find. Nostalgia, 90s, and Dutch Bros. Now, I am not from the Western United States, so when I first saw Dutch Bros, I thought that was a reference to old Dutch potato chips, because look, does this not look like it's in the same family as CFC Youth? Can someone tell me, are Dutch Bros and Old Dutch related in any way? I don't think they are, and yet the branding is eerily similar. Anyway, Turn this logo into a sticker, go to a youth convention, stick it on the backs of unsuspecting patrons from other youth groups. I know a youth pastor that did that as a bit of viral marketing, quote unquote viral, back in the day. For context, my youth group was called Impact Youth, and our logo was just the word impact, and get this, impact font. So maybe my standards are just low for what a youth group's brand can be, but even look at this font, P22 Underground. See the glyphs above the lowercase j's and i's? They're diamonds. I mean, come on, that's delightful. And we've also got Brandon Grotesque in this font family, just maybe my favorite font of all time, even if it is quite common nowadays. Just flawless execution in my books here with CFC Youth. Now, if you are curious, who is making all of these beautiful logos and brands? It's not me. All of these logos were designed by Josh Whiting and his agency, Bright Cole. To be abundantly clear, this is not a sponsored video. I am not an affiliate or anything like that with Bright Cole, but Josh was kind enough to invite me on his podcast a little while back called Making a Mark. And when I was checking out his website for the first time, preparing for the show, I was really impressed by his work. And I thought to myself, you know, more people need to see this. So if your church is looking toward a rebrand or needs a logo designed, I would certainly recommend Bright Cole. BrightCole.com is the website to see more. And then if you want to download every single logo design that you've seen in this video for your own inspiration, along with all the fonts and some elements of each church's brand that we didn't get to share in the visuals of this video, we've packaged all of that into a downloadable zip file. If you scan the QR code on the screen right now, you can access that. Link is also in the description of this video. And now that you have seen some great logo designs, the next video that you should watch explores worship background design, where I actually travel to a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to capture drone footage in some of the windiest conditions that I have ever encountered, that we then attempt to turn into cinematic worship backgrounds that you can download for free.